All right, guys, welcome to the Digital Barbell Podcast. Thanks for taking your time to be here. If this is your first time finding our podcast, make sure you subscribe before you leave. We put out 2 amazing podcasts every single week. One subpar, but 2 amazing podcasts at least every week. We've got a really good episode for you today. I just wrapped up an interview with Dr. Darin Deaton. If you've listened to our podcast for a while, you'll know that he's already been on here twice before. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He is a starting strength coach. He owns a ranch. We're going to talk about a lot about like cows. You're going to learn a lot about cows and beef and what you should look for if you're looking for a natural beef. We talked about joint health. We talked about how to maintain joint health. Is it normal to have joint pain? Kind of new treatments in joint health that are pretty exciting. And we got into just a lot of like practical advice about what are we doing this for in the first place? What is the best way to train for longevity, sustainability, all that kind of stuff. Great interview, so stick around for that. Guess what?
What?
We are the sponsor this week.
Ooh.
I mean, we had a lot of really expensive offers on the table. People, I think one was like $100,000. Somebody wanted to give us the sponsor, but I told them, no, we have this one covered. We're the sponsor because we have a program that people can join that starts on June 3rd, right after Memorial Day. It's called DGTL in under 45. What's this program all about? Because you're the genius behind writing it.
It's a full body workout. It's going to be 3 days per week, and it's about creating consistency over the summer. It's about getting you into the gym, getting you out of the gym, and being able to sustain a workout. We're going to give 3 workouts a week with a bonus 4th day. So 3 to 4 workouts per week consistently over the summer, and that's the aim of this program.
It's an 8-week program, and you also wrote a week of travel workouts because there's a good chance people are traveling at some point during this program.
You're going to get 9 workouts. One of them will be like a bands only vacation week workout, and you can put that anywhere you want in the program.
We could have thought of this years and years ago because one of the benefits of our custom training clients that work with us is we customize their programs at different times of year for when things get busy. We're always helping them navigate all the things of life. And summer is always one of those times where it's harder to stay consistent because you are getting busier. So that was the idea behind this, is we don't want you to, quote, fall off track over the summer. This is, it's not the most optimal training program in the world. Like if you had all the time in the world to train, but it's everything you need to probably make progress and definitely stay in shape over the summer.
Yeah, and what he means by not optimal is that you're going to be doing like supersets, giant sets. You're going to be pushing a couple different movements together in order to get it done quicker. And while that's not the most optimal way to train for muscle growth, consistency wins out over everything every time. So if you are like, I just want to train optimally, but I can only hit the gym once a week every 3 weeks this summer, that's not optimal training.
Ain't gonna work.
If you can stay with this program for 8 weeks, no matter if you're traveling or at home, hit 3 to 4 days a week, that's optimal training.
Yes.
And that's what this program is all about.
I mean, something like this sounds like it should be like $1 million. How much is this 8-week program?
This is going to be an uncoached program, so you're going to get the workouts. You're going to get them through our True Coach app. So, but you're not going to have a coach for this one. So we're trying to keep the price ticket low. $147 for all 8 weeks.
You'll have video demos of everything you're supposed to do. You'll be able to log your results, make sure you're making progress. All that
and you can
stuff.
use the app to like see what you did last week and add a little bit of weight or keep track of what you're doing.
The URL to sign up is digitalbarbell.com/quick, or we'll put a link to it below. There was something else I was going to say about it.
I've been testing the workouts just to make sure the time is right, and they've all been clocking in at that 35 to 40 minute. And I feel great afterwards. So I'm testing.
I think the proof is you look great too. I remember what I was going to say. If you join before this Saturday, the 25th, we're going to throw in a free gift, your choice of a jump rope,
ab mat, or a set of bands. So for this workout program, also it's dumbbells only. All you need is dumbbells, a pair of bands, a jump rope, and a place to move. Optional is a jump rope. Yeah. Is dumbbells, a pair of bands, something to step on. Optional things are a bench and a jump rope, but there's always workarounds for those things. So simple equipment list, dumbbells only.
We've already put this out to our email list, and a lot of people have already signed up, so I think it's going to be a really popular one, so don't miss out on that.
Yep.
Digitalbarbell.com/quick, or just scroll up in your podcast app, or look down below in the description on YouTube.
Yep. And don't forget to sign up before Saturday, May 25th if you want us to send you a free gift.
Boom. All right, without any further ado, let's get to my interview with Dr. Darin Deaton. Darin Deaton is a doctor of physical therapy, a business owner, a rancher, a strength athlete, and most notably, now a 3-time guest on the Digital Barbell podcast. Welcome back to the show, Coach D.
Hey, good to talk to you. How you doing, man?
I like to polish up these intros, man. Make it worth it.
Yeah, but that's super fancy.
Like I said, this is your 3rd time on the podcast. Highly recommend, if you guys did not listen to the first 2 episodes, go back. I will link them in the show notes. Episode number 82, we talked about how to reach your highest genetic potential, still one of our most popular episodes. And episode 164, we talked about avoiding an injured mindset. That was a really good one too. So go back and listen to those guys. Let's catch up, man. How is life on the ranch? How are your practices doing? Last time we talked, we were in a drought and you had just opened a new office in Stephenville.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So things are good. We live, I'll give you a little background, what's happened over when was the last podcast?
Maybe like a year and a half ago.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot has happened. We live about 20 miles north of Stephenville, Texas, which for some people that don't know our market, we are about an hour west of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, more on the Fort Worth side. We're an hour west of Fort Worth. We live on a cow-calf operation, and we raise cattle here on the ranch. And like John said, I'm a doctor of physical therapy and still do that. But lots has happened since when I talked last. So I was the founder of a group, founder and managing partner of a group in the Fort Worth market that we started 20 years ago as a physical therapy facility. We had outpatient physical therapy centers. We had 6 centers and we're about to open our 7th. And as of the end of January, I sold my managing interest in the practice group and just divested from that marketplace and pretty much moved, for lack of better terms, moved my entire life to the ranch and to the market out west here. And you guys are just south of us, basically. You're in Wimberley, right?
Right.
Okay, so you're not far from us, just kind of due south of the hill country there. But during that time, before I sold, the 2 years prior, I kind of knew that was, you and I just talked about this offline a little bit about developing a strategy and developing, for lack of better terms, an exit strategy, or just development over time, how your life and your business and your lifestyle and your health and everything is just going to transition over time so that you can be where you want to be when you want to be there, and you don't just let fate take you where it might take you, because the tides and the waves of fate without purposeful living can take you places you don't want to go, right?
Yeah, or just keep you stuck.
Yeah, exactly. And we get taken to some of those places anyway, even when we do have purpose. So what I started doing was I connected with a younger man who several years ago worked for me for a couple of years when he got out of his doctorate program. He interned at one of our facilities and he worked for me for a couple of years. And he had always said, hey, if you move out west or if you go out west, look me up. I'd like to talk to you about opportunities. And so he worked for me for a couple of years, and then he left to move closer to home to a little town called Brock, Texas, which is outside of Weatherford. And one day, Michelle and I think I told this story before, my wife and I had decided we were going to buy a ranch in the Erath, Johnson County area, which is west of Fort Worth, to be closer to her parents. We did that. And then all of a sudden I was in his neck of the woods again. I was close to him. So I saw him one day. I can't remember where it was. I saw him and he said, hey, what's going on? And we reconnected. And I said, let's have a cup of coffee. So we went and had a cup of coffee on December of 2022 or 1, I think. And then 6 months later, we opened our first facility under a different brand, our first physical therapy facility called DPT, Physical Therapy and Performance, in Stephenville. And so our 2-year anniversary of that facility was about a week ago. And since the time I talked to you, I sold the other group to my junior partners. They now run and own that group, which was a great opportunity for everyone. We have I have 3 facilities now in this rural area. We have a clinic in Stephenville, a clinic in Glen Rose, a clinic in Lubbock, Texas, and we're about to open another clinic, which has just not been announced yet. And
wow,
we took our cow calf operation, which was basically a Charolais over Angus operation, and we have converted it to be a Akaushi red Wagyu over Angus operation, and now we sell everything that we produce ranch to table. So we have a website where people can go and buy beef, buy good quality, high premium beef that's naturally pasture raised, and we do grain finish. Now we're going to do something this summer that we haven't done yet. I have a handful of steers that I've been feeding out here at the ranch on grass and grass products only, and those steers will probably be our first set of grass-fed beef offering, but it will be limited. And we could have that conversation for hours. I am a grain finished beef guy, though. I've done enough reading and done enough studying on both sides of the aisle to recognize that number one, I think it's safe and healthy, and number two, I think it's just better tasting beef. Mm-hmm. And so, but we're going to be offering both in a limited amount on the grass side and in more amount on the natural grain finish side. And so our beef production is basically all natural. We use no growth hormones, no antibiotics, no growth accelerants, no chips. None of our feeds are medicated, and all of our calves that we raise here on the ranch, we raise them to 700 pounds. And I have a direct contract with a local private feeder that feeds out my specific grain ration that I've designed, that's all natural, that has no, again, medicated feeds or anything like that. So nice, clean beef that is, we can't say we can grade it because we don't use a grade, a USDA grade capable processor at our butchery that we use. But it is USDA inspected, and if they did grade it, it would grade out as high choice to prime for sure. Okay. It's high quality beef. So,
man, you've made a lot of progress on that since last time we talked. You weren't actually selling anything at that point either. So how does the ordering process work now for somebody if they're not like your neighbor?
It's super simple. They go to thedeatonranch.com. And when they go online there, first of all, they ought to read about our operation. They ought to read about what we do, why we do what we do, how my background in health and fitness ties into the beef that we raise, and why we are shifting to the Akaushi Wagyu Angus product, and how that ties also into the health and fitness model with the amount of oleic acid that's produced in that animal, and the amount of great omega-3s that are produced in that animal. And a lot of people don't when you think about beef, they don't realize that this exists. But in the beef industry, when you eat a particular piece of beef, it can be cholesterol net positive, meaning that it's going to add to your cholesterol level, possibly cholesterol net neutral, meaning that it should have very little effect on your cholesterol. Now, obviously, genetics and other epigenetic things influence that.
Sure.
But number 3, it can be net negative, meaning that it actually reduces your cholesterol. And the reason why we're raising the Akaushi breed over our Angus, we're using the Angus for beef production and size, and just the quality also, and you just get a lot of meat for carcass. But we're using the Akaushi over the top so that we create a 50-50 F1 hybrid, which basically it's an F1 calf. So you have that influence of the high marbling, but the very high oleic acid content, which is very high in omega-3s, which actually has a net negative effect on human cholesterol. It'll actually reduce your cholesterol. So that's the reasoning why we're raising the Akaushi Wagyu over the Angus. So,
man, this is like a master class in beef up in here.
Yeah.
We end the episode right here. People will have something to walk away with.
Well, I've tried to study and study and study. You can't see behind me, but there are a couple books on that shelf and
I believe it.
magazines. And I take a bunch of trade magazines and just, I follow some guys online that have done sustainable regenerative ranches. Our ranch is a regenerative, sustainable ranch. We do rotational grazing. We use no pesticides, no chemicals that are man-made, that don't have organic substrates. So that means that the fertilizer that I fertilized with 6 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago is basically all organic. It's an organic mix. It has organic pesticides in it and herbicides in it too that are designed to use I guess you would say the macro environment within
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem of grass growth. And so everything that I do, I try to do right, is what I would consider right. So
Yeah,
that
for sure.
and our number one goal is that when you put beef in your mouth, it's an extension of your health and fitness program. And that's good nutrition, good high quality protein that you can count on and that the rancher that has raised that. I watch that calf from the time it's born to the time it's harvested. So I can tell you every input that's gone into that calf, and that helps us to predict the output.
I love it.
Yeah. And on our
Well,
website, simple, you go to the ranch store and you can we're selling right now in quarter, halves, and wholes. And so we would prefer more local customers, and our market is, 8 million people in the Dallas Fort Worth area.
yeah,
So, but if someone was in Texas and they wanted to buy beef, we could arrange to ensure that they got their beef.
yeah.
So, yeah,
So you'll throw it in the back of your truck and drive it down to their house.
I've done crazier things.
Well, I will definitely put a link to your website in the notes for this episode. So as I think back, like I think Blakely and I found you through Starting Strength, and then I quickly found your 40 Fit content. You had a company's podcast training facility dedicated to the over 40 athlete, and a lot of our clients now are over 30, over 40, and even as high as 60 and 70. So I thought we could kind of talk about something that's common to that demographic. Definitely the experience you have through 40 Fit and your rehab practice too, and that's specifically talking about pain, something we all deal with. I know you've talked about this on previous episodes of your own podcast before, and more specifically, joint pain. Does that sound like a good jumping off place?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm game.
What, in practice, how many people just show up at your door with a prescription from their doctor because they have joint pain?
Oh, if I had to put a number on it, I would probably say well, 99.9% of everyone that walks in our clinical practice has pain as part of the symptom presentation. Pain is one of the markers of the inflammatory process. There are four primary markers, and pain is one of those markers. And so when we have injury or we have an inflammatory condition, and you and I know from your background is that, not all, but most pain is generated from the inflammatory process or the oxidative state, the breakdown of human tissue, and the sensitization of sensory nerves that fire and then basically tell our brain, hey, I got pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we experience pain. There are really two types of pain that exist in whether it be the joint or other types of tissue. And let's just kind of step off right there and say, okay, you've got in the human body, we've got several different types of tissue that generate pain to our brain, or that generate a noxious signal that is coming to our brain efferently, and we're perceiving that as pain in our brain because pain is perceived. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't recognize this, but pain is perceived. It's not objective. You cannot objectify pain other than using scales and other things, but even with those, they're only so accurate as how they can allow us to quantify pain and qualify pain both.
Mm-hmm.
But so you have different types of tissue. You've got skin, you've got fat, you've got bone, you've got muscle, tendon, ligament, fascia. You've got fascia too. You've got cartilage and joints, both hyaline and articular cartilage. Um, and then you've got organ tissue in all your different organs. And so all these different tissues have different levels of what we call um, uh, sensitization, meaning that they all can transmit pain from their target organ back to the brain to tell us they're hurting at all different levels of intensity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you a good example. Fat, as an example, fat has next to no nerve endings in it. And that's why fatty tissue in our body really doesn't generate a lot of pain in us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Skin tissue, on the other hand, and skin tissue in certain areas of the body can generate higher levels of pain with less stimulus, less noxious stimulus. And a great example would be the skin on our hands and our fingers, because it's got to be very sensitive because of dexterity and because we use them all day long. The skin on our feet, it should be sensitized to a level that allows us to feel it fairly accurately. I don't know if you've ever had, like, we do dry needling in our practice, which is a form of needle technique for all sorts of treatments. And when you start needling around the nose and the face, it's very sensitive.
You ever had a
Around the
pimple? You
nose,
ever had a pimple on your upper lip?
yeah, yeah, it just kills you. Yeah. Or like have you ever gotten a paper cut like on your lip or something,
Whew.
super painful. So when you think about pain and how it's generated, everybody has it. The person who tells me I've never hurt they're lying. But everybody has pain. And I hate to say it this way, but as I get closer to 60, and I'm 3 years from 60 now, I recognize now that pain's just part of human existence. And my goal as a therapist, and our staff's goals as therapists, is to help patients, if possible, resolve that pain and rid them of that pain. If not, learn how to manage it and learn how to change their behavior towards pain. So I would say that the large majority of people that come in, pain is part of their symptom spectrum, if not all of them. I mean, you might have an athlete that comes in and they have instability in the shoulder joint or something, and it impairs their performance, but they're not hurting from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the exception to the rule. So 99.9% of the people that come in hurt.
Yeah. What about the whole, you touched on the kind of the psychosocial aspect of pain. A lot of clients, what we deal with, I'm sure that you do this in practice too, is helping them understand that just because they have pain doesn't mean they're incapable of doing things, or that it's necessarily a sign of some, physical structural problem that has to be, quote, fixed.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think, based on where someone's psyche is at the time that they have pain presentation, they have a pain symptom, what their past life experiences are, how strong their psychological construct is. Do they have an eggshell type psyche, or a strong minded, I guess in the world today, I guess in the fitness genre, we saw fragile and anti-fragile,
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff, unbreakable, unfrangible, unshakable, all that stuff. Well, okay. But yeah, so I think, based human mindset and the psyche uh, plays a significant role to how we perceive pain, and we do perceive it. So
Yep.
if I were to noxious stimuli someone on their finger or their hand at the exact same pressure and the exact same rate with the exact same stimulus to 10 people, they would all rate it differently,
Yeah.
because it has to go into our brain, into our thalamus, and into the frontal cortex, and we have to perceive it. And then during that perception process, it is bathed by our experiences, our logic, and our emotions. And then
Mm-hmm.
it comes back to us and we go, oh, wow, that hurt. The you're going to laugh at this, but the rule of thumb in our practice life, I've been practicing 34 years. This will be my 35th year to practice. And the one thing we always talk about as therapists when we see patients is basically this. And this is, I don't know why this is, but this is almost true 100% of the time. And very few things in life are absolute like that. But one of the things we always talk about is that if a patient comes in and says, man, I have a very high pain tolerance, you can guarantee they do not have a high pain tolerance. And I don't know why it is. So if you're that person listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, but it's just the way it is. People that have a high pain tolerance, they really don't recognize that they have a high pain tolerance sometimes. I mean, my father-in-law is in his 80s. He's 83. He'll be 84 this year, and that guy has the pain tolerance of a rhino. I mean, you just I've seen him have injuries, like heinous injuries, like fractures that you don't want to look at after the
Yeah.
fracture occurs. And I'll say, one time we were riding horses and working horses together, and he got bucked off, and he landed in some high grass, and I grabbed his horse and I walked over to him to check on him. I said, "What's going on?" I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yeah, but I think I broke my wrist." I said, "Why?" He said, "Is it supposed to look like this?"
Oh
Raised
gosh.
his arm up like this, and his arm looked like a Z.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, "No, that's broke. That's broke."
We don't need
And
an x-ray to know that's broke.
no, that's broke. It's not supposed to be a Z. But so everyone has pain. And so
Yeah.
what I try to do is help people understand is that we need to develop the right perception of pain. Um, I wish I could say that I am healthy and fit enough that I never really have pain, but that's not my life. And
I don't even
everybody,
think that's a realistic expectation. Like you can be the healthiest, strongest version of yourself, and that doesn't mean you're going to be pain free. And that's kind of the expectation I want to set in this episode. And I stole this from you probably years and years ago that you're going to have these pains, whether you're active, sedentary, you're strong as a horse, whatever. But the answer is probably to keep moving. And the expression
yes.
is that motion is lotion.
Right, right. Yeah, motion is lotion, and the other thing we say, lubrication is everything, right? Joint lubrication is everything, and so if we want the takeaway here is basically this: um, if we want healthier joints, there's really three things that we need to focus on, um, and three things that influence joint health the most. And those three things are, and we can dive as deep as you want into those, but those three things are number one, epigenetics, your genetics.
Choose your parents wisely.
Yeah, yeah, that's the bummer part, isn't it? And I find this funny sometimes. I guess as I've gotten older, today you are meeting the kinder, gentler Darin. The kinder, gentler Coach D, or Dr. D, whatever. And I think aging has done that to me. I think recognizing, when you walk into a room of 10, 10 junior high athletes. The other day I did kind of a squat and deadlift camp with a group of junior high and high school kids, and there were about 20 kids in the class. And I walked into the room, and as a health and fitness, I guess you would say, expert or whatever, but and also in the athletic realm, I could look at all 20 of those and just get a feel for who the best athlete was just by their epigenetics, how
Hmm.
they look. Some people are knock-kneed and have and some people are malaligned, and some people, and that doesn't make them bad or worse or anything. It just means that their epigenetics are different, and they may not be set up for success in certain areas, and they may be set up for success in other areas in their life.
Right.
And so, but epigenetics is the first thing, and that you have no choice there. It is what it is. But you can, when you do the right things, maximize your genetic potential, as we talked about prior, and
Yeah.
allow your good genes to express themselves in their phenotype much better, and kind of downplay or dampen down the bad genes.
Hmm.
Great example would be someone that watches their nutrition and watches what they eat and exercise. That same person, if not doing that, might have type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
But by doing that, they are they are they are depressing the bad gene that's inside of them, or the gene that is going to yield poor health status, and they are maximizing the good genes to allow those good genes to uh, nurture their well-being, I guess you would say. So first thing is epigenetics. The second thing is human joints need to be loaded. They need to be worked. People that are sedentary have poorer joint health markers and poorer joint health, uh, I guess you would say, statistics than people who actually are active and using their joints.
Say it again. Say it again for the people in the back. People who are sedentary have less healthy joints than people who load their joints. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. We, one of my business partners, Dr. Tina Newer, Tina did a study for her doctorate that was looking at squatting and injuries and pain and quality of, I guess you would say, quality of life health markers in athletes. And she specifically took power lifters of a certain age range, and it was from young to older. And then she also took, or the weightlifters, and then she took the sedentary, and she compared the two in regards to quality of life, performance, everything. And by and large, the people that were active had better joint health. They had less pain. You know, the idea is, well, you have knee pain, so stop running, right? You have knee pain, stop running. Well, no, that's not consistent with the evidence. Runners don't have any more knee pain than non-runners. Actually, they have less knee pain and they have better health markers. So if you look at their cohorts, if you look at a 60-year-old runner and a 60-year-old non-runner who does nothing and is not active at all, you find that the 60-year-old runner has a better quality of life, better health markers, better cardiovascular endurance. There's a lot of markers you could look at there. And so that's the second thing, is human joints need loading. They need loading because of the biophysical properties of human joint tissue when it comes to cartilage. There are three things in joints that really are the substrates or the construct of the joint, and that is cartilage, both hyaline and articular, fluid that is used to lubricate the cartilage and the joint, and then also the lining of the joint, which is called the synovial lining, and that's what actually produces the fluid cells. The more we use a joint, the more fluid we produce, the more viscous it becomes, the more lubricated it becomes, and the better the joint cartilage is receiving nutrition from the environment it's in. So that's the second thing, is loading. And then the last thing is environmental inputs, which would include our nutrition, our diet, and our lifestyle habits, which would be exercise, things like that. But nutrition plays a massive role in joint health. It's simple. You know, when you put a lot of chemicals in your body, those chemicals have to be filtered out, and they go into your soft tissue and they go throughout your body. They've got to be filtered out by your kidneys and your liver, the waste handling organs of your body. But some of that chemical gets left behind, and some of it gets left in tissues. And it's interesting, very interesting, how certain tissues of the human body will uptake certain chemicals more than others. And a good example would be, and this is a perfect example of this, people that have balance and dizziness issues or vertigo, they have an inner ear mechanism called the vestibular organ. And it's a little organ inside your ear. And it's not, it doesn't relate to your hearing. It is a positioning device like a GPS, and it tells your body where your body is in space and time. Well, that organ is one of the first organs to uptake alcohol when you drink.
Interesting.
So people that have vertigo are told, hey, reduce your alcohol intake or your vertigo is going to be worse. And it is, if they do drink, because that organ, for some reason, because of the type of tissue it is, and I don't know the actual chemical reason or the physical reason, but it will uptake. It's probably because that organ has a high water content, and so it's getting a lot of blood flow, and it's getting a lot of nutrients from the bloodstream and from the vascular system and through the lymphatic system, and the waste is going away, and basically it uptakes it. And so that's a perfect example. And so I don't know about you, but you know, I found that certain alcoholic drinks just make me feel bad the next day, like my joints and things. And,
interesting, yeah.
And so when I keep cleaner, I hate to say cleaner alcohol, but let's just put it this way:
cleaner poison.
Yeah. Less processed, for sure. Less processed alcohol, for sure. and less man-made. But yeah, so those are the three things that I preach,
Yeah.
And all those things have to be viewed with a lens of, I hate to say moderation, but moderation. As I've aged, I've it's funny. This maybe makes me a poorer guest for your podcast, but I think this is consistent with your philosophy and your wife's philosophy. Is her name Laura?
Blakely.
Laura? Blakely,
Yeah.
See, part of aging. Um, but yeah, so with Blakely too, and that is is that there is a sweet spot in training. And it's probably not, if the right side is just massive fitness, all out, top of the line, genetic, just crushing it. And the left at the bottom of the line is basically sedentary, obesity, lack of drive, lack of activity. Probably the best place to live is somewhere in the middle or just above the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Just above the middle, because it's sustainable. When you think about it, any anything in the world that we live in that gets used to its maximum ability all the time wears out early.
Yeah.
And anything that doesn't get used at all, I just hauled horses from here, from Texas to Alabama. We have a big 4-horse trailer that's got living quarters, and I have 4 tires on the back of it. Well, those tires have not seen a lot of mileage because we haven't hauled in a while. But they're relatively, I mean, they're 6-year-old tires, but they have very few miles on them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? I blew 3 of the 4 on the
Just
trip. Yeah, it
got
was a real
dry
fun, yeah, real fun trip.
with.
Um,
Oh,
but um, but yeah, they get dry and but if you use those tires, it keeps that rubber lubricated, and it keeps it expanding and contracting, and it heats it up and cools it and allows that rubber to stay strong and usable. And I'm convinced that human existence is a lot like that, is that we probably need to live, the more we can live in the sweet spot of health and fitness and lifestyle, probably the longer we're going to maximize whatever um, quality of life and length of life we're given here on earth.
yeah. I can definitely identify with that and seeing some changes in my own training. I feel grateful that we kind of discovered the style of training that we do, because it could have really been easy for us just to continue down the path of, doing 5 CrossFit workouts per week. And then, I could be experiencing a lot more joint pain because of that, potentially, just because I'm pushing more towards that extreme. So I feel like having a balanced way of training that has different amounts of loading, different intensities of conditioning, different intensities of weightlifting goes a long way. And yeah, you're not to one extreme or the other. I like to think about it both from like the fitness side of things and the body composition side of things. I want to live in a place where I'm kind of within striking distance of getting in really good shape or getting really lean at any
Yeah,
time. It's not
yeah,
sustainable for me to walk around at 9% body fat. I don't want to put all my food on a scale. I don't want to, limit certain kinds of foods or having a drink. That's not sustainable for me. But I'm close enough to that without making huge sacrifices that I can make short-term temporary sacrifices to get to that point. Or I could train really hard for 8 weeks and go do a CrossFit competition right now, but I don't
right.
do but 2 CrossFit workouts a week right now. So I think that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I think it is. And I think it's sustainable. It's a sustainable model. I'll tell you, I opened our first CrossFit gym in 2008 or 9, and I was in the industry for 10 years. And then I've been a barbell coach with Starting Strength since 2012, I think. So what is that? That's,
That's another 12 years.
yeah, another 12 years. And, and it has come full circle.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to an athlete the other day. I talked to a friend of mine. She was, very high level CrossFit athlete. I think in her region as a master's athlete, she was first or second. Um, and she was in the top. She was always, she didn't quite make it to the games, but she was really close one year. I think she was 22nd or third. So she's super fit. And she called me the other day and she said, "Hey, do you have time to talk?" I was like, "Sure." And she's like, "Coach D, man, my body's falling apart." She's like, "I don't," and she's my age. Okay. She's like, I just, I have all these aches and pains and my body's just falling apart. And I said, well, I don't know what to tell you, but I, I yeah, it basically there is a sweet spot, and there is a place where we need to be. And I get it. Some people make, I mean, fitness is your livelihood. Health and fitness is your livelihood. Um, but at the same time, it can't be your life.
Right.
Health and fitness is it's a compartmental part of your life. It's good stewardship of your body. It's using your body to do the things that you want to do. And it is a tool, a vehicle to get you to be able to be purposeful in life and do the things that you want to do, whether it be with your grandkids, whether it be going out and picking up a game of basketball with your buddies, playing golf, lifting, ultra, whatever you want to do. That's what your fitness is for. Our problem is in our culture is that a lot of people identify with who they are and what they are by their fitness, and whether they can do some workout or not. And I was in that place for a long time. I'm not there anymore. It's important to me. It's a part of who I am. I've built my life's work on the health and fitness industry, but it's not everything in my life. And I quickly realized, and I pay today, and I think you do too, probably. We both pay, maybe me a little more because I'm farther down the chain than you, but we both pay for the times that we've trained in a way that was not necessarily well balanced. The aches and pains that I have today are from probably the years of pounding and the years of doing things to my joints that really at the time I didn't know, you know. And training is so addictive too, and training can be so uh, that just like anything, we've got to do it in moderation, and we've got to do it with good stewardship, and we've got to always be training for not just exercising but training. And you might be in a lifting program and I talked to a guy the other day and he said, well, how strong is it strong enough, coach? And I said, how strong do you want to be? He said, well, about here. I said, all right, then for you, that's strong enough at this point in your life. I said, but there are other PRs that you could set. Maybe you've gotten to a strength. You could set, all right, I'm going to set a weeks in training PR that I do consistent weeks in training for 52 weeks, a whole year. That's my goal this year, is to get training in every single week and hit my weights and do the things I do. And that's my new PR. Yeah. It's a great PR. And a whole year of your life goes by and you're farther down the chain, but you're healthy and you're fit and you haven't beaten your body up. It might be, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to experience this in life or that in life. I kind of got to the point in the last 2 years, I train less now than I ever do. I still think I'm reasonably fit and healthy. I'm still strong. I squatted the other day. I squatted three sets of 5 with 315. You know, my weight is in a good place. I probably lose a little bit down here, but
you're cut off here at the chest. It's okay. Nobody can.
but yeah, but I mean, I'm not as fit looking and as muscular as I used to look, but when I compare myself to my cohorts and what they can do and what I can do, yeah, there's a difference.
I think it's just always about like looking at where you're at in your life and like making sure you have a reserve of strength, health, fitness, all that kind of stuff, so that when something pops up that's a setback in your life unpredictably, like it doesn't push you. We talk about this all the time on this podcast, but pushing you so far towards the sickness side of the spectrum that you can't recover. You don't have to be the most jacked person in the world or, walk around like you're ready to get on a stage or anything like that. But you got to have some kind of buffer for a rainy day, because they are going to come up.
Yeah. Well, and we did a podcast on that concept of health and fitness continuum. There are very fit people that are very unhealthy. Period. They die all the time.
Yeah.
And there are very unhealthy people that are not fit at all. They die all the time. Yeah. And there's people that are in between. And I think the health and fitness continuum is a continuum that constantly swings throughout our life. It is a never-ending moving target. And organically, we are like a tree. That tree is not just sitting there. That tree is just growing or not growing very slow, and you just can't perceive it with your eyes. That's
Mm-hmm.
the way human existence is. And as you get older, and you probably experience this, but as you get older and as you look back over your life, you start to recognize, things look different now than they did 10 years ago. Things look different than they did 20 years ago. And it starts to change your perception. I believe in learning from the experiences around us and from our own experiences also. And I've watched guys like you, and I've watched guys in the fitness industry. Also, a lot of my buddies and female experts in the industry, and just different people, and watch their life. And what amazes me is that we live, I get on a soapbox. Michelle's like, oh, shut it down, B. But, we live in a world full of influencers. And at the end of the day, does most of them, not all of them, but most of them, their desire to influence is fairly self-serving. And I just don't see a lot of fruit on the tree of most of those influencers.
What do you mean by that, self-serving?
They're selling a product or a lifestyle or a thing, or they're creating their own lifestyle. And there's nothing wrong with making a living. There's nothing wrong with those things. But at the end of the day, their desire to influence their audience is not built on something that is of good, long-term good sometimes. And we have unlimited information. But I'm amazed at all the influencers in the marketplace, especially in health and fitness and other areas of life. If you follow anything in our culture today, masculinity or femininity or whatever it is, there's an influencer for everything, and they're all experts at everything. The reality is that when you look at the personal lives, and when you look at actually behind the veil, there's not a lot there in many cases. And the ones that do have something behind the veil, you can kind of sense it, and you can kind of see it in how they present what they're presenting.
That was going to be my question, is how do you sniff that out?
I think it's super hard. I think it's super hard today with technology and AI and everything else that's out there today. It gets harder and harder. I can tell you one thing: you're an influencer, but I can tell that it's authentic.
How do you know I'm not? How do you know I'm not AI right now on the screen?
I don't. But I'm going to be honest with you. You look great, but if that's what you chose for AI, then you could do better.
I wouldn't have this gray hair, that's for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, you look like a fit guy, and I followed you too. I mean, some of it is time.
Yeah,
It's
time.
you and Blakely over time, and looking at your business over time, and looking at your business model, and just kind of watching y'all online and seeing your posts and other things. I mean, it's obvious you make a living doing this, and very transparent about that. But at the end of the day, you have a strong desire to meet the needs of your client base, and to have white glove service, and to ensure that your client base is getting what they're paying for. And that's really important when it comes to the ethics of what we do in the industry. It's the same way I practice physical therapy, same way I had in my fitness. I've got a barbell start. I mean, and I still train and I still teach. I don't have a gym anymore. I just have my practices. But I've got a client that's driving from Fort Worth to Stephenville, Texas on Tuesday to do a barbell startup program with me.
That's great.
He's got in his 40s. He's a computer science guy. He's never lifted before. And he saw some starting strength stuff, and he said, I want to get involved in this. So that's my opportunity then to, number one, generate income. Number two, to impart into him some nuggets and a good foundation to start his fitness program off. And it will be based on lifting first. And then if that relationship matures over time, I will gradually take him to a place to where hopefully he finds that balance of where he wants to be in his health and fitness journey. And I think that that's super important. And to talk about joint health, all of the things that we're talking about pay dividends in the area of joint health. And I will tell you that you asked me a question earlier on in this podcast, how many people have pain? The thing that stops the more mature, older athlete person. So let's just say, and I mean, it just matters it matters what the environment is. Let me give you a great example. If you're a NFL running back at 30, you're in the mature crowd.
Yeah. We're talking about
Right?
chronological age versus biological age, kind of.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're in the mature crowd. Your joints have had a ton of pounding. They've had a lot of cycles of stress to them. Um, if you're a power lifter anymore in the strength world, or a weightlifter, Olympic weightlifter, over 30 is masters.
Right.
You know, so there's a lot of fields. I've noticed in CrossFit, masters in CrossFit used to be 50.
Yeah.
Now it's 40, and now it's 30.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Um, I,
Right. It's going to be 25 in a decade.
yeah, exactly. And so, it's funny that when we look at these things, we start to realize that human joint health needs to be thought of when we don't need to think of it. When we've got plenty of human joint health is when we should learn how to restore that health, and learn how
Keep
to
it.
yeah, to keep it, and to keep something in the tank, like you said, is to find that sweet spot again, and to find a balance. It's just like running any other piece of equipment or anything else, and it's consistent with every organic creature in creativity, in creation, I guess you would say. And that is this: is that if you take a cow horse that's a 3-year-old that's been trained to go to a snaffle bit maturity, cow horse is like a cutter and a cow horse combined, reiner and cutter combined. That horse is an athlete, and that horse has had a ton of saddle on training time as a 3-year-old. And we go and show that horse. Well, that horse's joints potentially have the opportunity for inflammatory problems and wear and tear beyond the horse that's just sitting out in a pasture somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because that's what happens to us.
Yeah.
So, if you want good joint health, number one, consider your genetics. Number two, consider how you're loading your joints. Be purposeful about how you load your joints. Um, Hire a coach, preferably guys like these guys, or someone that's a starting strength certified coach. Even some CrossFit trainers, I know lots of good CrossFit trainers. And I hate to say this, most of those good CrossFit trainers are a little older, because they've kind of been there and done that. And they kind of see, and like I said, we're seeing the first generation of old CrossFitters come out of the industry. And I will tell you, in a lot of those masters athletes that were at the games and other places, I know several of those guys that both their knees have been replaced, their shoulders have been replaced. They're broken, beaten, and scarred.
We had Jason Grubb on the podcast. He's won the Masters division the last 3, if not 4 years now.
Mhm.
But he did not get into CrossFit until he was like 35, something like that. So the topic of joint health and pain never really came up with him, but point taken on the total number of reps that you do. And we're not trying to pick on CrossFit here. We're
No,
just
no.
talking about your biological, your training age, or your the amount of time you've spent doing this stuff does have a predisposition to where you're at in the journey. But that doesn't mean you just stop doing it.
No, no. And stress is stress, but there are different types of stress.
Right.
And whether you're exercising or you're just out working somewhere at the house or on a ranch or wherever, or your job, wherever else it is, that stress needs to be purposeful. And sometimes stress is neither good nor bad. It is neutral, and we get to choose whether it's good stress or whether it's bad stress. And that's just the way a lot of things in life is, right? I
That's a
mean,
great point. Yeah.
a lot of things are neutral. I know marathoners that I wouldn't want their body. I wouldn't want to look the way they do, and I wouldn't want to have the fitness and health that they do. When they get ready to come up to their marathon season, they've got colds all the time, they've got viruses all the time, their immune system's depressed, they've got low muscle mass. The males have higher estrogen levels than they do, than they could have in regards to having higher testosterone levels. And so there's a lot of things in every sport that sport is not good or bad. It's neutral in a lot of ways, but it's how we train that sport. It's the inputs and the outputs that we have in those individual endeavors that kind of control where we're going to be at the end of the day with our joints.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, when it's someone that has limited performance, it's either joint health or tendon health.
Mm-hmm.
We can live late into our lives and have relatively healthy muscles and relatively healthy tendons, but joints are where it's at. When an older athlete comes to me, 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 plus, etc., usually it's a joint problem. Or in some cases, when we're talking about tendons, the most common complaint would be the rotator cuff tendons of the shoulders in older athletes, older males. So the rotator cuff tendon can be a real common problem. But if it's not a tendon issue, it's probably an articular cartilage or hyaline cartilage issue. It's a joint issue. And we have limited solutions to that crowd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They're
it's
getting better.
as far as I know, there's no, fix for like, decreased cartilage. Has anything popped up with that where they're regenerating cartilage now?
Well, yeah, we're growing cartilage now. That podcast that I did with 40 Fit was probably about 2 years ago. And we're now seeing more patients with certain procedures. One of the procedures is called the MACI. It's a multifocal autographic cartilage implant. And basically what they do is they harvest your own cartilage. They take it out of your body. They put it in nitrogen. They ship it up to a lab in Boston. They put it in a petri dish, and then they put growth agents on it. They put growth hormone.
Pour a
And
protein shake on it.
yeah, exactly. Secret sauce. And it causes that cartilage actually to grow, and they grow a bigger bed of cartilage. Then
Interesting.
what they do is the doctor makes a measurement of the area, and let's say it's a knee joint where there's a devoid or a hole in the cartilage. He makes a measurement of that, and he makes a template for them, and then they grow the cartilage to just outside that level of size. And then they ship that cartilage back to him overnight when he gets ready to do the surgery. And then he does surgery and he implants that cartilage back into the area so it grows back into place.
Wow. I'm picturing
Yeah.
you like having to deconstruct a joint to slap it in there unless you can arthroscopically like pull it through a narrow joint or something. Wow.
No, it's an open procedure like an
Wow.
ACL, like an ACL reconstruction. So you have an incision about yay
Mm-hmm.
long, and it's super the rehab protocol post-operative is very conservative. I tell a patient that's going to have a MACI, you're looking at 12 months.
Wow.
You're looking at 12 months to getting back to loading and doing the things in life that you want to do. 9 to 12 months, kind of like an
Mm-hmm.
ACL. So, but I think in my lifetime, definitely in a younger person's lifetime, we're going to see cartilage implants.
Wow.
You're going to see them be able to come in and measure your cartilage through some type of scanogram or MRI, CT scan, or something through what's called an arthrogram, where they can put dye in the joint and they can look at the shape and the health of the cartilage. They can measure that out specifically for your knee or your whatever joint they're doing. And then they can grow that cartilage off of your cells, off of stem cells. And then they can come in, open you up, and put a new set of cartilage in, just like that.
That'll be a game changer probably for joint replacements.
It'll get rid of joint replacements
Uh-huh.
unless
Yeah.
someone has unless someone has a really heinous joint and architecturally the bone, the subchondral bone is also damaged significantly. It'll do away with total joints. Now it'll be years before that happens, but we're already seeing the MACI and other procedures be used.
Very
And so
interesting.
I think it's
So
just
short of that, you talked about, some of the things we can do in our everyday life and training, really just our training to, to maximize the amount of functionality we have in our joint and to decrease pain. You talked about the synovial lining. What do we do as far as, how do we load our joints? What should we be doing to do what we can right now?
well, I think every fitness program should have several components of loading. It should have higher loading as part of its program. Number one, because higher forces generate more stress to muscle tissue and create better hypertrophy, better muscular development. So you need some higher loading in your program. The second thing you should have is just I guess you'd say low resistance or low weight load loading, which could be something as simple as rowing on a rower, a Concept 2 rower. It could be being on a like a Schwinn Airdyne or a Rogue Echo bike or something like that, where you're doing intervals, where you're still getting joint motion, but the load is significantly less. So there's a lot of activity in the joint. It's stimulating the synovial lining. It's stimulating synovial fluid production, but it's not at a high intensity level necessarily. I think every program, and you and I talked about this a year ago or so, let me give you a good example. A guy like me, I'm 57 years old, lift twice a week, do some type of cardiovascular, high intensity endurance work a couple other days a week. I don't need any more training than that. The rest of my time is spent on the back of a horse. It's spent on moving implements, working equipment. I ride 3 or 4 times a week minimum. I work cows on the back of a horse. We show, do other things. I walk a lot because I show stock dogs too. And so there are other aspects of my life that my fitness is supporting, but are also fitness oriented activities.
Active.
Be active lifestyle, living an active lifestyle. And so I think an older athlete, let's just say that I don't know what that age is anymore, but let's just use 30 to 40 plus. I think you need a couple days of weight loading. You need a couple days of true weights, compound movements, bigger movements that are clean, that are structurally controlled, that are not holy-goly. And I like the barbell movements for that. Thus, Digital Barbell. I like the squat. I like the deadlift, and I like the press. Those are 3 movements that are functional lifestyle movements that we do every single day of our life. We might not do it with weight, but we reach, we squat, and we bend over. And so those are things that we do constantly. So why wouldn't we train those movements and train them in a way that's controlled in a set environment, not in a WOD or in a high intensity workout where I'm doing, 4 rounds for time, 20 squats. That's another way to train.
20 squats at 225. Go.
Yeah. 20 squats at 225, kettlebell swings, and a 400-meter run for, that is one way to train, but that's not that's not the loading we want to choose as our primary strength loading model. We want controlled compound movements. The second thing I think is, like we talked about, would be a couple of days of training that involve lower loading but higher repetition movements. So we're still getting movement in the joint, but we're loading the joint with less stress, and we're not wearing that cartilage out as fast. So I think those are kind of the principles that I use.
We agree with all that.
Yeah,
that's our training philosophy in a nutshell.
Yeah,
we hit a strength oriented movement in a controlled fashion, usually at the beginning of a workout. We move on to some higher rep, lower load accessory stuff. Maybe it's something like you talked about where you're on a monostructural piece of equipment. Maybe you're doing goblet squats, all that kind of stuff. And then every once in a while we do something where we really do get the heart rate up and bring some intensity with less, quote, risky loads and movement patterns. Boom. That's the secret sauce. You can train like that for the rest of your life.
You just said it. And I know it's not sexy. And I know it doesn't get followers on YouTube and everything else, but I've said for years that good quality training, people want to make it, everybody's looking for the holy grail. Everybody's looking for the next great hack. And the reality is that humans are what they are, and we all turn to dust and we all become carbon, and that's just the way it is. So what we should really do is not lie to ourselves and recognize that, okay, this is kind of what it is. What's the best path? What's the best path to find that? And then go to a guy or a lady like you two guys or other people in the industry that have done this for 10, 15, 20 years, and they have fruit on the tree.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
They actually still are relatively healthy. They actually are still relatively able. I'm amazed at people in the industry that promote one thing. And then when you look at them, I know guys that are in their 40s and I wouldn't want their health. And they're out front in the fitness industry, saying that this is the way to live. And the reality is, I don't want well, if that's the case, why aren't you? And some of those guys will admit, don't look at me. I made a lot of mistakes in my past training life. And that's why I am where I am today. But I'm trying to right those things by presenting a better model for other people. And those are the legitimate guys. Those are the guys that are real, that are legitimate. And not everybody can be David Goggins. Okay. I'm gonna tell you what, and I'm gonna tell you something. A guy like David Goggins, no doubt about it. Let's see where he is when he's 60.
Yeah.
Let's see where some of those guys are that are all out there, all out. I mean, humans are like any other machine. Like I said, we have a certain amount of life available and quality of life, and we should maximize that. Everybody can do what they want to do, but my clients, the people that come to me, if a guy says, I want to crush it this year, I'm 55 years old and I want to win the strength lifting championships. All right, great. You're going to be less healthy. Are you cool with that? If he says
expectations.
Yes to me, yeah. If he says yes to me, I say rock and roll. Here we go.
Right.
We start writing programs, right?
Yeah. We don't have a lot of those clients that want to sacrifice health for any fitness goal, really.
Yeah. And that's perfect. You have the best client base when you think about it as a business model too. That's the best client base, is that people that, because number one, they're going to be happier and healthier. And number two, they're going to stay your clients longer because they're in the game. Right. They're able to stay in the game and they're not getting injured. That's key.
Bonus points if they get to look like they work out too in the process.
Yeah. And I would say that 90%, the large majority of them do. I mean, I think there's a big part of what we do because of vanity, obviously. I mean, when my wife and I go somewhere and we're sitting on the beach or we're outside and, we've got bathing suits on or whatever, other than I'm white, extremely white, all that stuff Irish. But I want to look relatively healthy. I don't want someone to look at me and say, that guy's a glutton.
Right. Yeah. We do it. We do a lot of travel in our RV, and as we are at these RV parks and, we're trying to get a workout in outside of our RV, and we're just looking around. We're like, something here is not like the other things.
Yeah. We went to, I think the last place we went to was a resort in Mexico with some friends. And then right before that, we went to another place by ourselves, and we were looking around and we were looking at all these people that were retired, because we have conversations with a lot of those people now, because they're people in their late 50s, 60s, and they've retired now, and their entire life is recreation.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't want to look like these people and be like these people. I don't want to have.
You don't want the health that comes along and the lack of ability that comes along with it too. Yeah.
No, that's the underlying real issue, is that the people are just they're not going to be able to do that very long, as long as they could if they had a healthy life. And then you'll see a couple or a lady or a man early in the morning. My buddy and I, we drop down to the gym early in the morning before the ladies are up and at them, and he and I, boom, we hit the weights, we train together. And then you'll see a later man in their 60s or 70s or 80s, and they're out walking, man. Yep. Boom, boom. And they're out doing exercise. And you're thinking to yourself, that's where I want to be.
Yes.
I'm there.
They always look younger than they are too, but not by accident.
Yeah, for sure. And but again, when we talk about joint health in general, I think you hit the nail on the head. A couple days a week of moderately heavier loading that's in a structured strength lifting program, and then a couple days a week of or however you want to mix those things together. And then you're going to also have lower load, higher volume type loading on those joints, more during stamina training or cardiovascular endurance training, or it could be high intensity interval training, but just lower impact.
Yeah.
Like you can crush yourself, right, with Tabata rowing or 10 by 100 meter interval rows, or 10 by 100 meter Rogue Echo bike, and you can crush it to maximum intensity, but there's the load on your joints is so much less there, because of the design of the movement.
Right.
So swimming can be a great
Yeah,
place
people
too.
forget about swimming.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
great.
the last thing I want to say as we wrap up is that if somebody listening to this, they used to exercise, maybe they did group classes, whatever, they were in great shape and maybe have backslidden a little bit. And as a result of that, they have more joint pain now. Just be encouraged that if you do get back into it, you follow a structured program designed to gradually increase, through progressive overload, your joint pain might just go away, by getting
Right.
back into it. So
Right.
probably staying sedentary isn't the answer if you're in pain. It's kind of that whole thing like I'm going to start working out as soon as I get in shape, or I got to get in shape before I go join the gym. No, you can start back, and that's going to help decrease the joint pain. And I'm sure that overlaps with
Yeah.
your experience.
Yeah, and I think it's almost counterintuitive sometimes. We'll get patients to come in, they say, I hurt. Why do you want me to exercise? I
Right.
hurt when you do that. And I'm like, well, let's keep doing that. Let's try to work through some of this. And it's not no pain, no gain. It has to be purposeful and it has to be goal and outcome directed. But over time, what we find is that the chemicals that are produced during exercise activity combined with the physical loading of the joints and the physical use of the joints over time improve pain mediation, which allows you to manage it better. And the other thing that you get is if you have a coach or a physical therapist that you're working or someone in the industry that's knowledgeable, they can help you right size your pain too. They can
Mm-hmm.
help you better perceive that this is appropriate. This is muscular soreness. This is fine.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of joint pain, and it's going to be there because we've got to work through these issues. But you can put training over the top of pain. When I squat today, I'll get some knee pain sometimes, and I've got a knee that's a little quirky sometimes. But guess what? I don't stop squatting.
Yeah.
Well, I have a choice. I tell my patients this all the time, and I'll leave you with this. You can be weak and hurt more, or you can be strong and hurt less. You decide.
I
So,
love it.
and that is exactly true. It's the way it works. And there's some physiological reasons for that, and there's some psychological reasons for that too.
Yep.
So,
Amen. Well, cool, man. I know people are going to walk away from this with some takeaways they can put in practice, especially if they're of our age cohort and have a little bit of joint pain. Remind everybody the website for where they can go buy their beef and
oh,
anywhere else you. And I'll just say personally, hope you eventually you and Trent resurrect the 40 Fit podcast. Lots of good episodes out there in the archives. If you don't, but it'd be awesome if you guys did. But how can people connect with you and find you?
sure, sure. Well, if you want to email me, I'll give you my personal email. If anyone has any questions, it's Deaton. That's Deaton DPT@gmail.com. Feel free to email me. It might take me several days to get back to you, but I will. Secondly, if you're interested in beef or you're just interested in learning about what you should buy locally, and if you have questions or anything, you can go to thedeatonranch.com, and we have a store there. We have a contact page there. We have a newsletter there, and you can go to that and take a look at our operation. And if you want training, you can email me if you need anything there. But these guys are an unbelievable resource for that. I don't do any online training anymore, so these are your guys to go to. So, but yeah, I would say just stay in the game, stay active. Remember that fitness is not your life, but it can greatly influence the quality of your life. And so I think that's where it's at. Trent and I will see each other this weekend
Oh, that's
with
right at the wedding.
Bob
Yeah.
Hamburg at his daughter's wedding. And
Bring your
so who
mics.
knows? Conversations have been flowing around. It's like anything else in life. I always say, we did a podcast called Life Deloads.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Remember that one? And it's so true. You don't lose, you don't leave what you know, but there are times in your life where you have to shift gears because there are greater desires and greater goals that you have, and I'm living in that goal in that
Yeah.
manifestation
Yeah.
now.
It's a good point.
And so sometimes in our lives, that's the way life is. The key is to remember what you have and what's of value, and come back to it when you're ready.
I love it. Well, I'll be ready if you do. All right, man. Buddy. Thanks again for doing this. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll catch you next week.